13 minutes to 9 on a Saturday morning in London. You never forget your first trip to Wilton's Music Hall. I remember the first time I went. It was around about the time, I must have been in 2002, 2003, when they were doing the Restoration series on BBC Two. And it's in the East End. It's considered the world's oldest surviving grand music hall, surviving in its original form since 1858. Still very much in use. Got a rich and varied programme of theatre and music, but it is in a state of disrepair. Let's welcome Francis Mayhew, who's the artistic director of Wilton's, and Peter Juchler, who's the director of The Great Gatsby, which is coming to the hall next month. Morning to you both. Thank you for joining us.
Morning.
Francis, it's not an insult to say it's in a state of disrepair, because it really is, isn't it?
No, it's very true, sadly. 40% of it is derelict, and the other parts that we inhabit, mostly the hall and some of the rooms on the ground floor, are becoming, are usable now, but it is in a very bad way. Just
for those people who haven't seen it, just describe it, because when I walked in and people said to me, who were showing me around, this is where they would have had, the various bawdy shows in the old days, and this is where they would have put the candlelight. Suddenly, you're there. You can picture it.
The atmosphere is quite extraordinary, I think, with that building. And what's so nice is sometimes when you're in the evenings at the box office and you just listen to everybody's conversations when they come into the building for the first time. Somebody said, "Oh, it's so beautiful in here. I feel like the walls are peeling with stories," and the walls are very crumbly. And somebody came to see us once and said they were absolutely convinced they'd seen all the performers at Wilton's on the stage. They'd seen their ghosts and wanted to know more about them. And it's that kind of a place. It's very evocative.
It must be great working there late night.
Yeah.
When everyone's gone home and lock it. Who's the last to lock
technical
up?
Manager about that?
Do you know what I do not understand is... people go... you're quite right. Everyone that I've ever met that's been there, whether they've been there for an event or been there for a show, have all said it is absolutely unique. I cannot understand why you still don't have funding for it, when I think that lottery money is... 50 million or something has gone towards a painting in the National Art Gallery. Why on earth is this beautiful building that actually feeds the soul to so many people still struggling to be refurbished? It really is a sin, isn't it?
I think sometimes people have a wrong idea about what they think a music hall is, and maybe that's easily misconceived when you're sat in an office, as you say, looking at lots of applications and you can't quite make up your mind who's going to have the money for it. But it's, as you say, it's in the heart of an amazing community that has been very lost and forgotten, as have the music halls in general in this country. And so therefore, just because they're not super popular doesn't mean that they shouldn't be valued or saved in any way. And they're just being pulled down all the time. There was one pulled down in Dalston only a couple of years ago. There was one pulled down in Islington only about 5 years ago. So clearly there's an attitude of, if we can put a hotel there, then we will. And it's just lucky that Wilton's is listed, but still the attitude of, well, let's get on and use it and save it hasn't, perhaps in funding bodies, being fully comprehended.
It's an amazing experience walking out. It's a very, very narrow alleyway to get there. Yes. And when you walk off the alleyway and inside, you forget where you are, and it's a heck of a shock leaving. We must talk about The Great Gatsby, because yes. Peter Juchler, is that how we say your name? I bet it's not.
It's a French name, so you're saying it absolutely correctly as a French person.
Brilliant. But how do you say it in this country?
Well, the British say Juchler.
Juchler. Peter, thank you for coming. The Great Gatsby, I mean, what a great venue for that to be put on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it immensely. Yeah.
What are the there must be some practicalities of putting it on in that sort of space, because it's quite...
Yes, there are, but they're wonderful challenges. I mean, in the story, you've got to create a swimming pool. Gatsby gets shot in a swimming pool. How do you do that? There's a car crash. I think it's going to be a very...
Francis is worried.
Yes. All the action will have to be off stage. People saying, I can just see you swimming in the pool.
No, it's going to be very challenging. We're trying to do a very immersive piece of theatre. So from the very beginning, the audience is going to be completely swamped with 1920s culture, music, speakeasies, police raids, things to make them really understand what it was like to be in the fits in 1920 with prohibition and stuff like that.
Can I ask you about that? Because we've been talking all morning about the first films you've ever seen. And in actual fact, The Great Gatsby was one of the first films I saw back in this country at the cinema, and I only watched it on for face value. And ever since, people refer to it as one of the greatest literary pieces ever written. Why? What is it? Because, as you were saying, it's the prohibition years, or is it the love affair, or what is it?
I don't know. It's funny. Most people I talk to who about The Great Gatsby, they say the first time they read the book, they think, what a load of rubbish. And then they come back to it. And then when they come back to it, they realise that it's a lot more complicated, it's a lot more subtle. I mean, I've read a lot about The Great Gatsby, and nobody quite can put their hand on their hearts and say exactly what it's about. But I think it is a sort of comment upon an age which is an age of decadence, an age where very young people are earning extremely large amounts of money, and it happens to be an age which is just before an economic crash. Well, there
that rings a bell.
Perhaps one or two similarities with contemporary life. That's certainly one of the reasons why I think it's going to go down very well, and there's a lot of interest in it.
And do you think it's also like Brideshead? There's a location that is as important as the cast, where it all took place.
There is
really
that. The Gatsby parties. I mean, we're going to turn Wilton's into a Gatsby's party, so that everybody in there will feel as if they're taking part in the parties. We're getting local dancers to come in, dressed up, who will encourage the audience to dance, so the audience really feel that they are immersed in a decadent Gatsby party.
Who are your cast?
We've just successfully cast 8 fine actors.
We've got Kirsty Bestman and Michael Malarkey, Julian Stolzenberg and Madeline Bauer, Nick Chambers and Connor Byrne and Vicky Campbell.
Blimey, that's a memory, isn't it?
Off the top of my head.
And the other thing is, for both of you, and I always think this must be the dilemma at putting anything on at Wilton's, is the wear and tear of that place, because it is crumbling, isn't it? So do you have to treat it with real care when you're staging anything?
Yes.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's going to be a huge advantage with Wilton's is that there's something unique about the acoustic of Wilton's. And this show is going to be punctuated by some very, very fine a cappella arrangements of 1920s songs, just for an audience to understand and to feel what the jazz age was like. So these fine actors are also fine singers. And the sound of these arrangements by a wonderful colleague of mine, Roger Moon, who's a wonderful arranger, are going to sound very, very wonderful and warm and lush in that space. The acoustic is just fantastic.
It is, but we also have to keep things quite simple for most of the shows we do, which has been fortunate because we've never had enough cash to spend a lot of money on a show anyway. But so we've learned how to make things that are light and that look after themselves and don't attach themselves to anything, to be careful of the fabric. And every day after each show, every morning we come in and we fix down the floorboards that got broken the night before. We put the bricks back in the wall that came out of the mortar. We put the plastic back on the roof that's been blown away overnight. So
it's quite that fragile, isn't it?
It's a real job.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't realise how much work it takes to just keep a derelict building functioning.
We always, I remember the Evening Standard one day did a great headline, the hottest show in town, and they went to every show and they were just taking the temperature of how hideously warm so many of the London theatres are. And presumably, even keeping any kind of air temperature,
natural ventilation.
We watch it. Presumably you are just a victim of whatever the weather happens to be outside. Are you?
We are, and the worst is wind. Wind just howls through the building, and the mortar comes out, and the roof tiles come off, and it is freezing, absolutely Arctic.
But for anyone listening, the joy of going to see The Great Gatsby, but also in a venue that is. So before the show even starts, you are awestruck from the moment you enter, because it is fantastic. And I hate always saying, and they're filmed in there, but they have filmed loads in there, haven't they?
Yes.
Just name a couple of things that have...
So most recently would be the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes, the second one, Game of Shadows. There's a the opening scene at Wilton's is amazing. We've just been having a Stephen Polyakov Dancing on the Edge will come out quite soon. And A Picture of Dorian Gray. It's another nice one.
So, Francis, that must contribute a bit, doesn't it, to the old
That's how
coffers?
we stay alive, absolutely, because we're not a funded organisation, so we do quite a lot of film shoots, quite a lot of photo shoots, and we do the odd wedding, and we do the odd wedding ceremony even, and that income basically keeps the building in check. That pays for the bills and the builders.
Right, should we give all the
yes,
details?
you start in about 6 weeks, end of April, towards the end of April, 20th of April, till the 19th of May. So you're not on for very long. Tickets are £10 up to £27.50. I understand you're serving snacks from the 1920s. Not those that are past their sell-by date, you understand,
No, yeah.
but remade.
We're investigating it, but it's all things like, pineapple upside down cake or canned crab.
They had good taste.
So we're going to probably edit that slightly.
Okay. Well, whatever it is, make sure you have a fun night. Wilton's Music Hall. If you want to book tickets, presumably through the Wilton's Hall website themselves or a phone number, can you give us both?
Yes, the website is wiltons.org.uk and the box office is 0207 702 2789.
It's great to see you both. Francis Mayhew, the artistic director of Wilton's, and Peter Jukla, who's the director of The Great Gatsby, coming to Wilton's towards the end of April.
Do you know, it sounds silly, Simon. Half of me, when it is eventually finished, I hope it doesn't lose some of its appeal, because I love how it is at the moment. I know that's easy for me to say because I don't have to work there, but I love it all decaying and probably because I can relate to it, Simon.